to Stalin himself.
They interfered with everything, and they had the right and the authority to go in anywhere and to take very drastic measures like shooting the general, shooting anyone.
Soviet state military archives document the fate of the 76th Tank Battalion, 34th Light Tank Brigade, trapped within a moti at Lemete. In January of 1940, Battalion Commander Captain Ryazanov began to plan a breakout. But the battalion's NKVD officer opposed it. He called Ryazanov a coward. Ryazanov replied, "I am in charge. I give the orders." Only 19 men of that battalion survived the war.
For Stalin, the situation was desperate because he was worried about Hitler, despite the treaty. He had to somehow knock the Finns out of the war.
Stalin brings in General Timoshenko, who was one of the few really good professional Red Army soldiers who had escaped the purges.
Timoshenko augmented his forces for a massive new offensive with 45 divisions, 750,000 soldiers, more than 3,000 artillery pieces, 2,000 tanks, and hundreds of fighters and bombers.
And he adjusted the strategy. Now he concentrated all the forces against the key to Finland, which was in southern Finland, the Karelian Isthmus.
Field Marshal Mannerheim monitored the Soviet buildup and understood the inevitable. As he committed the last of his reserves, Mannerheim drew confidence from the fundamental strength of his nation.
The nation stood as one man behind their armed forces in the calm and determined knowledge that the struggle must go on.
On February 1st, the Soviets resumed their offensive. Up to 2,000 artillery shells hit the Mannerheim line each day for the next 10 days.
Niin kuin helvetti ei en ole käynyt tietenkään siellä, mutta tuntuu siltä, että ei sen kamalempaa tilannetta voi olla.
On February 11th, up to 250,000 shells rained down on the line. It was the largest artillery barrage since the Battle of Verdun during the First World War.
8:35, an unprecedented artillery bombardment of our entire sector. 12:15, tanks have broken through. Enemy infantry has captured part of our positions.
All Finnish reserves were thrown into battle. The Red Army could not be contained.
By the end of February 13th, on the third day of the offensive, the 123rd Rifle Division with attached armor units broke through the main defensive line. Sumo fortified area was completely destroyed.
At the end of February, Jack Hazy's work as an ambulance driver came to a sudden end. The next day, he was evacuated from the front line. At the end of February, Finnish defenders had been pushed back to a line in front of the strategic city of Viborg, headquarters for the Finnish forces on the Karelian Isthmus. Finnish defenders struggled to hold the line in front of Viborg. On March 5th, Soviet troops attempted a flanking maneuver across the frozen Gulf of Finland to surround the city of Viborg. When Finns detected columns of tanks and infantry on the ice, they fired their huge coastal batteries, 12-inch guns, intended to sink battleships.
The weight and velocity of the projectiles was so enormous that it shattered the Gulf ice and opened up yawning gaps, and whole Russian companies disappeared through these holes in the ice.
The Finns' desperate resistance continued with a ferocity that masked a steadily diminishing capacity. By March 12th, they had almost no more ammunition. At noon on March 13th, the word spread along the line. An armistice had been signed. The brutal 105-day war was over.
If a fly had been in the air, he would have held its buzz. Not a single shot. Dead silence. I did not believe such a thing was possible. Then, people started to regain their senses. Started throwing hats and all kinds of stuff in the air. Almost nothing remained of our battalion. Front line is front line. All I felt was indifference. what do I remember most from that war? It was the incompetence of our army. We could not even deal with a handful of Finns. They showed us how to fight a war.
Gunnar Latio, leading a column back toward Finland's newly negotiated border, decided to stop to check on his men.
Lähdin hiihtämään sitä taaksepäin ja pysähdyin yhden tien viereen vähälle korkeammalle penkalle ja pistin suksen sauvat kainaloihin ja jäin katselemaan siinä poikia kun ja heilautiin kättä varmaan heille siinä kun valtailuna meni ohitte. Ja sitten minä nukahdin.
That's where his men found him. Latio remembers his dream. He was in a hospital. They were offering him a bed. 24 hours later, he woke up in a hospital bed.
Ja olen onnellinen siitä, että sota päättyi sillä tavalla ja sillä hetkellä, sillä me olimme kaikki niin loppuun ajettuja kuin ikinä voi olla.
Our company commander told us, the war is over. After that, he met a Finnish company commander in no man's land. In the evening, everyone started campfires. Our campfires were far from the Finnish ones. Everyone was drunk and our company commander was rebuking us. Our soldiers told him, who needs this war? Do Finns need this war? No one needs it, neither us nor Finns. Everyone was singing songs. I made myself warm at the fire. That was it. The war was over.
Jack Hazy was on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean returning to the United States when he learned about the ceasefire. More than 6 decades later, after a career in the French Foreign Legion and the CIA, Jack Hazy was presented with Finland's highest honor, the Liberty Cross. The peace terms announced were harsh. All of Eastern Karelia, about 12% of Finland, became part of the Soviet Union. Anna Tukia was nursing wounded soldiers.
Se sitten oli oikein tuskainen nuori mies, opiskelijapoika kai oli se, ja häneltä oli amputoitu siis toinen jalka pois. Ja se siellä hyvin tuskaisena siitä se sanoi mulle, sitä varten kun minä sen jalkani sinne kannaksella jätteestä ryssäsen sais, musta kun säilyisi meillä vapaus.
Tommy Lainonen was one of thousands of Karelians who had been forced from their homes by the war.
Mäkin rupesin ihan ääneen itkemään. Ja mie itkin ja me lähdettiin siinä. Se on sodan viimeinen rauhan ehdot luettiin, että me karjalaiset jäädään tänne.
I didn't cry when everybody else cried. I used to go into the woods and cry alone. And that I have done many times because of the loss of Karelia, the loss of home, and because of homesickness too. And that was the day when homesickness made a nest in me, and it has not disappeared.
In the next few days, 422,000 Finnish Karelians refused to become Soviet citizens by leaving their homes and most of their possessions behind and crossing the new border into Finland.
Refugees everywhere, families trying to cram several generations worth of precious family belongings into one wagon or one sled.
We had 3 days to get our things from Hiitola, and my mother and my grandmother went to traveled to Hiitola, and my mother and father met in the middle of night under a starry sky there on the yard of the home.
As winter turned to spring, Finns were left with a final unpleasant responsibility. In Suomussalmi, along 20 kilometers of the Rata Road, melting snow and ice revealed the bodies of thousands of Soviet soldiers.
In spring 1940, the Finnish soldiers buried these